Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so happy. It's this Thanksgiving week, and I just want to begin really my message today by just telling all of you, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this church family. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve you. It is one of the greatest gifts and the greatest pleasures of my life to be a priest. I fought being a priest, just so you all know, for 8 years. I didn't want to be a priest. I kept saying, no, I don't want to do this. And one of my biggest regrets, and there are a lot of them, but one of my biggest ones is that I didn't get ordained earlier to have the blessing of serving all of you. So just know how grateful I am to all of you just to be your priest, to serve you, and to minister to you all. And to those of you that may be visiting our church, welcome to St. John the Divine. It's good to have all of you here. And if you happen to be new, please make it a point before you exit to introduce yourselves to our welcoming team. They'll tell you all about us. I know that there's people also in our chapel that are worshiping with us. So to the chapel people who came late, just joking. But to the chapel people, we're so grateful that you are here this morning as well. And I just want to finally, though, just give a big thank you so much to all of you who helped out at our Greek festival. I mean, what an amazing weekend. It was a record year. We're still determining the numbers, but I really don't care too much about the numbers. I really care about how many people came and viewed this church and came into this church. And there are some of you that are here today who literally came through the tours and are like, wait a minute, I found something, I experienced something in this church, and they're here with us worshiping. And so I just want to thank all of you for all of your hard work that all of you did in making the festival such a success. And maybe you weren't able to be with us physically in person, but maybe you were praying with us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. We are, as I always say to you all, we wear these little bracelets to remind us that we are a proto-otheos church. We are a God-first church, not a Niccolo church, not anyone else. It's all about God first. And when you put God first in your life, we have seen in our own lives that everything seems to go a little bit better. So with that being said, let me start with part 3 of our new sermon series called Standing Guard. And what I want you all to know, this standing guard is this message, that when you and I desire to grow in our walk of faith, you need to be very much aware of this. That when you desire to grow in your faith, for many of you, you've been at the sides, at the very extremes of the battlefield that we call planet Earth of life. But when you decide to really start living your faith, following Christ, being part of who he is in your life, making this church very much a central part in your life, you have to know that you become in the crosshairs of the enemy. You actually move from where you were on the back end, on the far end, to the back, to the very front. You're on the front line, and one of the saints of our church, St. Isaac the Syrian, says that when you start following good, you better, this is how he says it, better be ready to endure Satan. And if you right now are not feeling like you're fighting, I might just tell you with a respectful phrase that be careful what kind of Christianity you're worshiping. And so we have been giving this message about standing guard. We're talking about standing guard over your mind, a message that none of you need to listen to about standing guard over your mouth. None of you have that problem. That was a couple weeks ago. But today, it's all about standing guard over your eyes. I think that one of the greatest gifts that God has given all of us is our eyes. I truly believe that oftentimes when we were growing up, we would hear people tell us, my dad would say this, he'd say, Nick, when you shake someone's hand, look them in the eyes. The eyes are so powerful. It's a way that we recognize who the people that are around us. And God has given us this gift to see the world, to see your children, to see the beauty that is in this church. God has blessed us with the ability to see. But with a great gift comes great responsibility, because for many of us, it is one of the biggest areas we are struggling with. It is one of the biggest struggles in our own walk of faith of what you and I are seeing. Because for many of us, friends, if we're totally honest with ourselves, we're living in a world that turns away when we see a homeless man. We are people that turn our eyes when we see someone struggling. To make matters worse, we are living in a time when we see people and we evaluate them just because of what we see. We criticize people, we judge people. Some of you, and to be quite honest with you, I think if we were all honest, all of us participate that on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes we have bought into this lie, this spiritual battle, that tells us that if you don't see it, you're not responsible for it. 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Africa, that many of you have heard these stories on countless occasions, whether they're in Bible studies or in homilies. But there was a time in which I was driving in an area of Turkana, Africa, in one of the most impoverished areas in the world. And yes, I saw commercials that would tell us, especially during the holiday season, about hunger in this world, or people being sold into slavery, or children dying of starvation. Yes, I would see that. I would look at it on the television. But when I was there in Turkana, Africa, and you pull up into an area where everyone is living on dirt. If you were a wealthy person, you had a mud hut that was not bigger than a 3x3 square in this church. And children would be running up. I cannot get this young boy, Samson, that I've talked about on a number of occasions, out of my mind, running up to me and saying, "Mata, Mata, water, water," because he was so thirsty. I cannot go to a restaurant to this day, my friends, and not finish my water. Because sometimes if we don't want to see it, we don't want to be responsible for it. But let me be very clear with you, church family. You have an earthly placement. Yes, you are on planet Earth now. But make no mistake, you have a heavenly assignment. You have an earthly placement, but you have a heavenly assignment. And God is asking, are you opening your eyes to what we're seeing in this world? I want you to open up your Bibles to what we were reading this morning in the Gospel of Luke. We're looking at page 1391. For those of you that are online, it's chapter 12, verses 16 to 21. I love to share when we read the Bible, friends. I don't have the liberty as a priest to just simply explore whatever I think the scriptures are. But I have to follow what the teachings of our church have been for 2,000 years. Sometimes this particular Bible verse has been mistranslated and misunderstood. So let me explore this with you. Luke is a doctor. By the way, Luke is also an iconographer. Luke wrote, or we would say, some of you may say, he painted an icon of the Virgin Mary that is still in monasteries today. He was a doctor to St. Paul. And so listen to what St. Luke is saying through what Christ is saying, and Luke is recording. And just so you know, if you're looking at the Bible, Christ is speaking specifically to the faithful people. He's speaking to people like you and I, who are people that go and worship God. Listen to what he says. We're going to pick it up in verse 16. He says, "Then Christ spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully." In other words, this man produced a lot of fruit. He had a lot of his harvest. For those of us that might need to be translated into 2025, this man had a lot. And the man thought within himself, he was thinking to himself, what should I do? I have so many things. I don't even have enough room to store all that I have. Just on a side note, just to kind of give you something funny, but think about that America, God bless the United States of America, but we are the largest hoarders than any other nation in the world. Let me get back to the Bible verse. Okay, so and he thought within, that's why you see all these storage buildings being built up. Anyway, let's keep going, Nick. Okay, and he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, since I have no room to store all of my crops? So he said this, what a great thought. I will do this. I'm going to pull down my barns and then build greater ones, and there I will store all of my crops and all of my goods. In other words, I am going to not deal with the problem that I have, I'm just going to actually make it even bigger. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many good things laid up. Just relax. Eat, drink, and be merry. I worry sometimes, church family, that sometimes in our walk of faith, we may be in the church, we may be in this worship, we may be eating and drinking and being merry, and not reading the next verse. But God said to them, "You fool! Tonight your soul is required of you. Then whose will those things that you've been storing up, who are they going to be given to? So is he who laid up treasures for himself and is not rich towards God." Now, pause for a second. I want you to scroll down to the comments area of the Bible. Look at verses 20 in the comments section and reading specifically what St. John Chrysostom, who is the premier Bible study professor, if you will, who is even recognized amongst Protestant churches, by the way. People in Protestant churches know who John Chrysostom is. Listen to what he says. He says, "The stomach that writes that the only barns that we need, we already have. They are the stomachs of the poor." Then St. Basil the Great says, he taught that the bread in our cupboard, the bread in our refrigerator belongs to the hungry man. The coat hanging in is unused belongs to the one who needs it. The shoes rotting in our closet belong to the one who has no shoes. And the money that we are hoarding belongs to the poor. Open your eyes. So what do we do about this, church family? What is our response? Because I would argue that sometimes I love our nation. We live in an amazing nation. But sometimes America lies to us. We start believing that America is heaven. And we are living in such a way that we just are eating and drinking and being merry. And we come to church, we check the box. We may get a little bit of a Bible study or the Lowe's daily message and think, oh, we're doing great. And God is saying, you fool. You have all of these things. Open your eyes to the needs of this world. So what do we do? Here's 3 things I want you all to think about. Here's number 1. I want you to open your eyes to their world. Many of us know the story of the famous parable of the Good Samaritan. How this person that was beaten, the Samaritan, was beaten and bruised by so many people, left for dead, and a priest, a Levite, people of faith, would simply walk by. But then someone had the courage to open their eyes to see past what they're doing, what happened, and to help the needs of that person. And that is what we are called to be. I want to be very vulnerable with all of you because I love you so much. You need to know that your priest is not perfect. Several years ago, I was doing a marriage retreat. One of the things I love to do on our days off, Roxanne and I love to do, is to travel and to do retreats because there's people just like you in the pews that are struggling in their life. And I don't feel like God tells me to just stay here. That God yearns for me to help as many people, to use the gifts that He's given me to go. So I fly out on Friday, come back Saturday. In fact, I was in Philadelphia yesterday. But I was doing a retreat, a marriage retreat, and as I was doing this marriage retreat, it starts out a little bit funny, but gets to be very sad. And so I'm doing this retreat, and as we're talking, and at most marriage retreats, just so you all know, it's nothing that's really shocking, but many times the women are bringing their husbands to a marriage retreat because the husband has no desire to be at a marriage retreat. So this couple was in there, this place was packed, hundreds of people that were there. We were giving a marriage retreat. I was there, and as I was giving this marriage retreat, this wife in the back was taking notes. I mean, she was so meticulous, taking notes, everything that we were doing, just writing everything I was saying, okay? Just writing it right. Her husband right next to her was sleeping. And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, we just started, how are you already falling asleep? So I'm starting to get a little bit louder. The man is still sleeping. The next session, conflict resolution. She's writing it all down. Husband, sleeping again. I'm going, my goodness, what do I have to do to wake this man up? He keeps sleeping. In session 3, putting a log on the fire. In other words, doing things that still keep the fun going on in a marriage. She's taking notes. He's sleeping. By the end, I am furious because I have spent so much time preparing this presentation and this man is sleeping in the retreat. This is how your priest is an absolute 100% sinner. And how I struggle to open my eyes. The couple comes up to me afterwards. The wife does. She comes up to me and she says, Father Dick, great presentation. I was taking so many notes. She goes, listen to this. I had no idea who you are. My husband, who is battling cancer and going through chemo treatment and is unable to stay awake, told me about you. And even though he's so sick, he just wanted to come and to listen. And I was taking notes for him. Thank you so much. Let me tell you something. I felt like this. My point is, church family, we are called to enter their world. We have no idea. We have no idea what people are going through in their world. And I'm just encouraging you to remember that not everything that you feel is a fact. And not every time someone does something to you, it's done on purpose. Open your eyes to the world. Here's number 2. We open our eyes to their worth. When people saw a thief on the cross, they said, crucify him. But when Jesus saw the thief on the cross, he saw someone that wanted to be forgiven. When the adulterous woman was thrown before Christ by the Pharisees and they were saying, what shall we do with her? We should kill her. Jesus saw someone that needed to be redeemed. When the people saw Jesus hanging around with Zacchaeus, the tax collector, the people said, why are you dining with people that look like him and act like him? And Jesus saw someone that needed him to come into the house of their heart. Can I tell you, church family, stop letting people rise to your standard. You are not the standard by which people need to live. He is. And for many of us, we are trying to bring our wife or our husband or our children to a standard that they are not called to be. Listen to what St. Ephrem the Syrian says. He says, blessed is the person who has eyes that sees every human being. Listen to this. Muslim, Christian, Jew, Republican, Democrat, every person. Blessed is that man who sees every human being in the image of God and not the faults that the devil has sown inside of them. Blessed is that man. If you can't find Christ in the beggar at the front door, you're not going to find Christ in the chalice, says John Chrysostom. And here's number 3. We open our eyes to their world, to their worth, and to their wounds. There's this big movement in our country that we need to tell the truth. It's all about truth, truth, truth. And then there's this other side of Christianity. It's all about grace, grace, grace. If they want to live that way, let them live that way. It's not a problem. God loves all people. And how misguided we are. Yes, there is truth, but it must be accompanied with grace. With your children as parents, yes, you give them the truth, but you do it with grace. Let me make this in a very simple mathematical issue or mathematical problem for you. Faith minus love equals 0. Faith minus love equals 0. So I leave you with this. I watched this video recently, really just touched my heart. It's about this young boy that was given a gift at Christmas of a boat. This boy was named Tommy, and he got this little boat that was made up of all these different pieces, and it was his job to build it. And so Tommy begins spending every day putting every piece of this boat together. He puts the bottom part of the boat, he puts the sails on it. He loves this boat so much, he's sitting there taking care of this boat. He protects this boat at all times for anything happening to it. He just loves this boat. It was called Tommy's boat. And so Tommy, one day, wants to take this boat out into the water. And so he ties a string to this boat, and he puts it down a little bit of a stream. And as the stream is there, he's holding onto the boat. And he's just holding onto it, but the boat keeps kind of going, but he's holding onto it. But the current on the stream keeps getting stronger and stronger, causing that boat to, at one point, break the string and go off. Tommy runs after this boat. This precious boat that he loves so much, he's running after it to save that boat, but the boat keeps on going down the stream. Tommy is devastated. He's so sad that he lost his boat. When he comes in, he's crying. He's so upset that he lost his boat, that he spent so much time making and building, and that stream took his water, took his boat down the stream. And so one day, Tommy is walking down the road, and he sees in a pawn shop, at the very top of the pawn shop, right in the window, was his boat. Tommy walked into the pawn shop and told the manager, "Sir, that's my boat. I lost that boat and I'm wanting to find it back. Can I have it back?" And the man said, No. Someone gave that boat and we bought that boat. That boat cost $5.75. He said, "You have to bring me $5.75 to get that boat back." And Tommy goes, "I don't have that money." He says, "Well, you have to get it if you want that boat back." So Tommy goes and begins working in yards every day, gathering quarters. Quarters ended up making dollars. Dollars ended up growing to that $5.75. He goes to the owner of that pawn shop and he throws the money on the counter. He says, "Here's your $5.75. That's my boat. I made that boat and I want it back." The man said, here's your boat." Tommy leaves there and he looks at that boat and he said, "I'm so glad that you're back. I missed you. I created you. And I'm so happy that I paid to have you back in my life." The current of that stream is the world. The boat is you. And what Christ did to buy you back to him yearns for all of us, church family, to allow ourselves to, in some small way, open our eyes to the world because he opened his eyes to us. So I'm encouraging you all, as we are in this Advent season, as we're in this season of fasting, open your eyes to the world. Open your eyes to their worth and open your eyes to their wounds. Because yes, you're sitting in church today. Yes, you have an earthly placement, but make no mistake, everyone. You have a heavenly assignment. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us stand well.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for downloading this message. I hope that in some small way, this sermon can inspire you, motivate you, and guide you in your walk of faith. I'm a firm believer, friends, in what I like to call practical Christianity. Basically trying my best to give you some steps and some tips that you can follow to apply this sermon in your everyday walk of faith. And so if you have found this sermon beneficial, do me a favor. Not only do I want you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you get access to all of our sermons, but I also want you to share them with your family and your friends. Let's go out and make a difference in this world, and hopefully this sermon can be one way that we do just that. I also want you to stay in touch with us all throughout the week on our social media platforms. Friends, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook and Twitter, all under the headings of The Lows. And this past year, Roxanne and I started sending out these daily inspirational messages. And if you would like to receive those messages, go to our website at thelows.com/subscribe. And all you have to do is simply put up your email address, and every day at 7 a.m., you'll receive one of our daily words of encouragement. And finally, friends, if I can ever be of assistance to you, do me a favor. You can stay in touch with me by going and emailing me at fathernicholas@thelows.com. That's fathernicholas@thelows.com. Once again, everyone, thanks so much for downloading this message. God bless you and stay strong in your walk of faith.